day that's recognized by Christians all over the world, and it's been on the Christian calendar for a long, long time. It's a very significant event, and as you could figure out, this is the day when Jesus entered into Jerusalem, and he presented himself as the Messiah and King. This day marks the beginning of the last week of Jesus' life. So over the next 7 days, he's going to enter into Jerusalem. That's the first step. Then he cleanses the temple, as we'll see today. He challenges the religious leaders. He institutes the Lord's Supper. Then he's arrested and he's tried and crucified on Good Friday, coming up soon. And then 3 days later, he rises from the dead. Now, over 700 years prior to this event, God had said to David, the king of Israel, he said, 2 Samuel 7, when your time comes and you rest with your ancestors, I will raise up after you your descendant who will come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He is the one who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. So here we go. Here we've got the forever king. He's entering into Jerusalem just as was prophesied. And he's coming into Jerusalem and he's ready, and he's into David's city. So this is the city of David in fulfillment of prophecy, right? But the way and the manner in which he does this takes us completely by surprise, because this is not the way we typically would see a king being presented to his people for the very first time. I mean, take your minds back a year or so ago to the coronation of King Charles. What pomp, right? What a whole lot of paraphernalia, and some would say rightly so. That's fair enough, but you remember there was the gold carriage and the magnificent horses, and then there was all of this robing that went on, right? And then there was the crown with the jewel-studded crown. There was the orb that he held, then it was the sword, and there was all these things taking place for this great event. And to take the coronation, almost the entrance of King Jesus in comparison. He turns up in simple clothing, no gold carriage, no magnificent horses, no soldiers guarding him, no armor, no sword, and he's coming on of all things, a mule, a donkey, for crying out loud. And so we see, though, that in this, and we're going to come to understand that's the whole point of him turning up this way, because this Jesus, as we're going to see, is a very different kind of a king. So I want to show you and give you a glimpse or several glimpses of this king this morning. I want to show you how wonderful he is, how amazing he is. I want you to see this king's heart. This is key, because then that will have an effect upon your heart and your life, and you will see that how he is really worthy of our affection. He's worthy of our praise. And in fact, I really want to, this morning, call you to each one of you to abandon your life to this king, because he is worthy of it. It is for so many reasons, so that you could love this king with all your heart and with all your soul, and he could make your life flourish and thrive for the rest of your days, okay? So this event, called the Triumphal Entry, is recorded on all four Gospels, which tells us it's a very, very key event. It's a very important one. Whenever you see one event recorded by all four, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you know it really matters. We're going to focus just on the Matthew account, as we heard some of those readings from those kids. If you want to follow along and just see where this is in a Bible, there's a Bible in front of you. It's a red book. It's page 875 in our guest Bibles there. 875, and this is Matthew chapter 21, right? So from this chapter of Matthew, I want to give you 5 pictures or 5 portraits of this king. And I want you to see his heart. And the first of those we're going to see is he is a humble, gentle king. He's a humble, gentle king, right? Jesus is approaching Jerusalem. He has approached Jerusalem and come into Jerusalem many times during his life. This is the last time. This is the final entry that he'll make before his death and then his resurrection. And he sends ahead of him 2 disciples to go and find a donkey, a mule or donkey, and a colt, which is the young one. And not just any one, but particular ones, specific ones that he had appointed for them, right? And why does he do this? This is important because Matthew tells us, he interprets this event in verse 4, this took place so that what was spoken through the prophet might be fulfilled. Okay, and then he cites Zechariah the prophet, chapter 9, verse 9. Tell daughter of Zion. Daughter of Zion is kind of like a colloquialism for the people of Israel. Tell daughter of Zion, see or behold, your king is coming to you, gentle and mounted on a donkey and on a colt, the foal of a donkey. So in citing Zechariah, quoting from the Old Testament, Matthew's clearly telling us this is in fulfillment of prophecy. He's declaring his kingship as was foretold that he would, and he's doing it in such a way that reveals to us just what kind of king that he is. Daughter of Jerusalem, behold your king. He is gentle. He is lowly. He is humble. He's coming not to slay you, but to save you. He is coming not to subdue you, but to die for you. See your king. See him. I wonder when you last saw a king or a world leader be presented upon the stage of the world like this. You know, when we were voting for our national leaders some time ago, were we looking for someone who was gentle, humble? No, we were looking for someone who's strong and assertive, right? And who would be tough and aggressive. We don't want gentle people. They'll get walked over. They'll get stomped. The opposition will rise up against them. They won't have anything to say. And they'll never get anything done. See your king. He's coming on a donkey. Gentle. Humble. Lowly. There's just something that doesn't seem to quite fit with us, with our human nature. But this is the irony of it. Because this gentle, lowly, humble king has nerves of steel, is strong to the core. So don't be put off. Don't be confused, because this gentle king is no pushover. Absolutely not. Unlike so many of us, this is what and I personally have been affected by this man, this God-man Jesus, myself, is that he's able to keep his strength under control. And this makes all the difference in the world. And this is what we don't quite see happening in the world, do we? John Steinberg wrote a great little book. My dad handed it to me many years ago. It's called Of Mice and Men, and some of you might remember it. It's a beautiful story. It's a very moving story about Lenny. And Lenny's a big man. He's strong as an ox, really. He's got these great big muscles, and he's also got a great big heart. But poor old Lenny, he's got a bit of a difficulty that he struggles with. He's mentally challenged. And so he gets himself in trouble. You know, the problem with Lenny, it wasn't his strength, because strength is a gift. But what happened is he just loved to just stroke things, nice, soft, cuddly things. And the first thing that lost its life under Lenny's hand was a little mouse. And he didn't mean to. And then it was a puppy. And then toward the end of the book, it was a woman's neck. And it's a really grieving story. But the whole point of it is, that the author wants to show us, is that what Lenny lacked is the ability to use his strength wisely. To use his power to help others and not harm them. Jesus uses his power to help you and not to harm you. He's a good and kind king. He's the one who said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, because I will give you" what? Rest. Rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, because I'm lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. This is a different kind of leader. This is a different kind of a king. Is that the kind of king you would like in your life? Would you entrust your life and your heart to someone with that kind of care? That's the question that every person is faced with if they hear about who this man is. Will he deal gently with me and not harshly? The answer for me personally is yes. Yes, he will. He's a humble king, a gentle king. Secondly, he's a global king. Now, Matthew doesn't include this part here, but when we read all of Zechariah's prophecy, if you go back to chapter 9 of Zechariah and you read verse 9 of chapter 9, which is cited by Matthew, and then you read just the next verse 10, it says this: he will proclaim peace to the nations. His dominion will extend from sea to sea, from the Euphrates River to the ends of the earth. So this is speaking about Jesus' earthly reign. And we can see it's not limited to Jerusalem or Israel. It extends to the ends of the earth. Right? So his rule, if you like, or his leadership is not just over Jews. It's not just over Christians. It's over everyone and everything. He rules over every leader, every king, every prime minister and president in the world. He rules over all of Africa and China and Russia and Asia. He rules over every island and nation in the South Pacific, including this one. He rules over every people group throughout the world. And what is the proclamation that this great king makes? Zechariah tells us it's peace. He will proclaim peace to the nations. And that proclamation of peace comes by way of the good news, the gospel, which this king now charges to all those who follow him to proclaim and share and tell, you see. So we have a message as believers in Jesus. We have a message from the king, and it's a message of peace, or it's urging people to make peace with God. That's what Paul says himself, the apostle, 2 Corinthians 5:20, therefore we are ambassadors for Christ. Since God is making his appeal through us, we plead on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. Make peace with your Creator. And it's Jesus who made this reconciliation possible by going to this cross and dying on our behalf. So he became sin for us. He went to take our place. He was the sacrifice instead of us. So the innocent one, because he had no sin, takes the place of the guilty ones, which is us. And the guilty are set free and forgiven. Therefore, Paul says, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, you see. So what a beautiful kingly portrait this one is. He's a global king. He's a gentle king. Thirdly, we see in this passage of Matthew, he's a powerful king. As we come down to verses 12 and 13, we find Jesus enacting out another Old Testament scene, an Old Testament text. Verse 12, Jesus went into the temple, and throughout all of those buying and selling, he overturned the tables of the money changers and the chairs of those selling doves. And he said to them, it is written, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of thieves. Now, this is where we see the nerves of iron and nerves of steel and the strength come through, right? Here we see he's no pushover. This man is mighty and ought to be feared when he's angry for the right reasons. So I'll just give you a bit of a picture here of what's going on. This temple was massive. This was the temple, Herod's temple it was called, as he built it in the first century. And it was made up a number of areas, or walled areas, or courts, right? You've got the middle one, and this is the kind of the holy places, and that's the court where only the priests can go towards the center. And then you come out from that, and you've got the court of women, so that's where they were to go and worship and meet with God. And then outside of that was the riffraff like you and I. This is where the court of the Gentiles was, where all the others who are, from all nations. Okay? But the idea was with this temple and the way that it was designed that everybody could come and meet God. And it was in these court of Gentiles that the religious leaders had set up their stalls. in their little shops, lots of them. And they were doing, this is what they were doing. It was horrific when you can think about it. But they were stopping people coming through into the temple by examining all of their offerings. So the people would bring an offering, perhaps it would be whatever they could afford. It could be a lamb, it could be a goat, it could be a little bird. And then they'd have to examine these offerings to see they're suitable. And of course, they always found some sort of fault with the offering. And they said, I'm sorry, but this offering won't be accepted. However, it just happens to be your lucky day. We've got a nice little stall over here that Levi is running, and it's a pre-approved offerings that you can go and buy there. So if you trot over to Levi, you can buy an offering that will be acceptable to God, just at a small little price, of course. And we'll take care of your little one for dinner afterwards. I mean, no, we won't do that. And then, but I'm sorry, also the coin that you've got, that's not used in this temple. You need a special coin, and you can go over to Judas's table just over there, and he'll do a little exchange for you just for the small price of pay, of course. So this is the sort of stuff that was going on. They were fleecing God's people, using God's people, using religion or piety as a cover. It's wicked, it's evil, and here comes God's chosen king, the anointed one, the Messiah, and he's coming to clean house. He's coming to clean house. He picks up all of these tables, we don't know how big they were, and he flips them. And there's stuff just going everywhere. You can imagine it's just there's birds flying, there's coin going, there's papers flying, and some of these buskers and money changers are just running, like they're just getting out of there. And he clears the place out of these horrible fleecing people, what they were doing. And then he roars, my house is supposed to be a house of prayer, right? And now, what happens next is absolutely stunning. When we move scenes now, this gentle king, humble, global, powerful, not to be messed with, and now, but watch now as we see his kindness and his compassion. For straight after this, verse 14, we read these amazing words from Matthew. The blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. I want you to try to imagine the scene here and the impact this would have had on people. Right, you've just had a scene of absolute chaos and mayhem. There's stuff being thrown everywhere. People running out of this temple. And who should come in next? The oppressed, the weak, the marginalized, the blind and the lame, the people who can't see and can't walk, the mentally challenged, the alcoholics, the messed up, broken people who are considered by the religious leaders as being unacceptable to God. They come in. They come to him. You know why they come to him? They know he's safe. He's safe. Does this speak to your heart? This Jesus, this King, he's safe. He'll take people who are weak and he'll be very, very gentle with them. This gentle but powerful King takes these poor, wretched souls into his arms. And with his loving hands and his loving care, he heals them. He's gentle with them. He loves them. Is this the kind of king you'd like in your life? One so powerful, so kind, so strong, and yet so gentle. Could you entrust your life to such a king? Matthew gives us one last glimpse of this king. He's gentle, he's global, he's powerful, he's kind, and then lastly, he's divine. He's divine. We read in verse 15, when the chief priests and the scribes saw the wonders that he did, the wonders, God's wonders being performed, and the children shouting in the temple, Hosanna to the Son of David, they were indignant. And they said to him, do you hear what these children are saying? Jesus replied, yes, actually, as a matter of fact, I do. Have you never read You have prepared praise from the mouth of infants and nursing babes. And then he left them. They are aghast not only about what he's just done, but of this praise and adulation he's receiving from the masses, from the crowds, and from these children. And basically these religious leaders are saying, are you just going to let that go unchallenged? You realize what they're saying? They think you're divine. And Jesus, yes, I know exactly what they're saying. And not only do I hear it, I planned it. And I will gladly receive it. And I would receive it from you guys too, if you would only humble yourself and not be so blind as to see it. And what's so astonishing in Jesus' answer, and yet we have to do a bit of a digging in the text, or you have a look at some of those words that might be in bold, or they could be in capitals in your Bible, and you check some of the references out because these things matter. You've got Matthew citing again, and this time straight out of Psalm 8. And listen to what Psalm 8 says, because it's a psalm about God. And it says, Lord, O Lord, how majestic is your name throughout the earth. You have covered the heavens with your majesty, and out of the mouths of infants and nursing babes you have established a stronghold. I don't want you to miss this here. Jesus receives praises from these little children and then explains it by quoting where the little children are praising God. So the irony of the scene is that the children recognize who Jesus is and the blind religious leaders don't. The children get it and they can't. What a message to us. What a rebuke sometimes to us, isn't it? Maybe we should give a little bit more room for what the children say, especially what they're saying about God. Behold your king, Matthew says. And what kind of king do we see? Well, we see a humble king, a gentle king. We see a powerful king, a global king, a kind and compassionate king, and a divine king. This is the one who has come. He's come not to slay us, but to save us. He's come not to oppress us and subdue us, but to serve us. Not to overthrow the power of Rome, which is what the Jewish people wanted. He came to do something greater than that. He came to overthrow the even more oppressive power of sin and Satan. But this is not where the story ends, and we know that, don't we, most of us? This is not the first time that the king's going to make an appearance on the world stage. He is coming a second time. And when he comes a second time, it's not going to be riding on a mule. It's not going to be the gentle and lowly Jesus. He comes as the ruling and reigning king, as he should, as he must, so that we can see everything that's been put wrong in this world can be put right. And he brings justice to the nations. We get a picture of this, a glimpse of this in the book of Revelation, chapter 19. Let me read a couple of verses, verse 11 and 12. And John says, Then I saw heaven opened, and there was a white horse. Here he comes. Here he comes. Its rider is called Faithful and True, and with justice he judges and makes war. His eyes are a fiery flame, and many crowns were on his head, and he has a name written on it that no one knows except himself. The time for patient waiting is over. The time for judgment has to come. And it's not something that I would wish for you if you're not a Christian here today, or on anyone in your position. It's a day that we should tremble over. And we should weep at the countless millions who have no more time, no more opportunity, for the door will be closed. This is not religious games that we're playing here. This same word that you're hearing from the Word of God this morning is the same word that breathed into the into the nostrils of Adam and he became a living being. It's the same word that spoke the world into existence. It's the same word that raised people from the dead, and it is the same word that will raise every single human being from his grave to appear before the great judge. There's no games here. Will you receive the King? Will you receive him? Will you submit to his kind and gentle rule in your life, entrust your life to him because he will care for you like no one else has ever cared for you? Or will you continue to push him away, and say, I'm okay, thanks. I don't need him. If you this morning are here, you're tired of life, you're tired of your sins, you're tired of your weakness, you're tired of shame or guilt. If you're tired from the pain that just comes from living this earthly life, and that's painful enough sometimes, isn't it? Then let Jesus come and change your life. Let him come and change your life. Come to him. Come to him. Won't you bow your heads with me? And I want to say a few words of prayer before our